Hi everyone, let's talk about the impacts of international migration. So for international migration, you have a source country, which is the one giving out the migrants, when you have destination country, the one receiving the migrants. For a source country, your socio-economic impacts are positive and negative. Positives, there are remittances returned. So for the working migrants, they move to another country, they earn money and they can send some back, which increases your revenue of the country. Some migrants might return with skill, upskilling your labor force when they return, therefore improving your productivity and your economy in that sense. There's easing unemployment or underemployment levels. So if your country does not have enough jobs available for your working force, they can migrate to other countries, which eases that level and also reduces your poverty with it. Reducing the strain on services and housing as well. Less usage of these services, these housing, so you have less competition, maybe lower prices or maybe stable prices, not rapid inflation. However, you do get brain drain, so you're losing out on your labor force. You have a lower labor force, and perhaps a lot of those that are migrating are those of higher skill. So you have losing skill and also losing productivity, and also higher dependency ratio. A lot of international migration is for economic reasons, and therefore a lot of the economically active are the ones migrating. Therefore, you have an increase in proportion of your elderly and your young dependents. For cultural impacts, you have the degradation of your home culture. There's not enough people around to preserve the culture, and therefore you get a degradation in that sense. Returning migrants might question traditional values, which then leads to divisions in the community and in the society. For political impacts wise, there are positives because they're growth of the critics of perhaps home authoritarian or corrupt regimes. So you've grown up in a corrupt country, you didn't know about that, but when you migrate out, you study in somewhere that teaches more democratic values, more liberty. You can think back, your country is a bit more corrupt, a bit more authoritarian, and you can criticize that. However, you do get less significance globally because with lower populations, maybe in regional organizations, in global organizations, you do have less importance and less significance. For environment, there are positives such as less pressure on local natural resources and therefore lower ecological footprint. And also, you have some soils that may replenish their health and therefore get better nutrients, get more nutritious food with that. However, some soils that might be abandoned, some agricultural land that might be abandoned with it, might be degraded. Maybe the drainage system is just broken down and it's oversaturating the soil. In that case, it is negative, and because your soil will degrade, it will exhaust, and that's a negative environmental impact. Moving on to destination for socio-economic impacts, you do get support costs coming in, so the money that the migrants gather up to be able to spend in your destination country, there's a larger workforce, so you get more economic productivity. Skills are brought in, perhaps important skills that are learned from other countries, they can bring it in, and that's really vital for economy. Combats the aging population. So if a country suffers from aging population, high elderly and young dependency ratio, but it's not enough economically active, with more migrants, especially of working age, coming into the country, you can combat this aging population issue. They also take 3D jobs. 3D are dirty, dangerous, and dull or difficult, and those are jobs that a lot of the locals do not want, so these migrants can take out the jobs and help society function. However, there is increased pressures on housing and services. These migrants are, after all, still humans. They do need housing and services to be able to live, and therefore you have increase in pressure, which leads to rising prices for your housing and services. As for culture, there are positives such as the increase of cultural diversity and perhaps more languages spoken, and everyone benefits with more languages spoken. You can communicate better. However, it does alter the ethnic composition of an area, maybe leading to the growth of xenophobia or just racial tension in general. Political positives wise, there's the adoption of more favorable attitudes towards migrants, so policies become more favorable towards them. But illegal immigrants might strain the political ties between countries, such as the United States and Mexico, for example. There are neutral, subjective political impacts, which is up to your interpretation. But migrants tend to vote left as opposed to right, and there might be the development of immigrant politicians, which might be good, but they might take votes away from local politicians. Environmental wise, there are positives such as the growth of skills, perspectives, and innovations on environmental solutions in that country, or perhaps for global warming, for climate change. However, generally you get negatives such as higher ecological footprint. They are using more resources. Urban sprawl, you need more land to develop for housing and stuff. And there's more pressure on local natural resources again for building materials and other economic activity. So this sums up the impacts of international migration. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.